What is our spiritual evolutionary path? Why are we here and where are we going? Mark Gilbert here, and in this brief video I'm going to give a quick overview of what I've come to believe is our spiritual evolutionary path. Understanding this path is so essential to a full understanding of essential questions of life that I wrote a book about it. In my video on the spiritual quest, I mentioned that this topic of our evolution is so essential to understand as we look for meaning. This story is our story. It's where we came from and where we're going, and everything we learn about spirituality and ourselves fits in with this overview. Now I'm going to go through this quickly to keep the video somewhat brief. And certain concepts, which I'll go through quickly, will be explained more fully in later videos. But it's crucial to know that I did not make up this story. The tale I'm telling here has been offered by mystics, philosophers, and scientists. I'm simply synthesizing and summarizing what I've learned and putting my own spin on it. So let's get to it. In the beginning, or once upon a time. These phrases often start fantastic stories. But another way to hear those words is to recognize what they're talking about. They're really referencing a beginning point, or more accurately, a non-point that's outside the realm of time and space. That may sound strange, but I want you to imagine that if we could step outside this physical universe and the sense of time passing by, where would we be? When would we be? It's kind of difficult, I recognize, but for the moment, imagine taking your conscious self out and above this sense of time and space. And if we can do that, then let's further imagine that before there was time and space, there was a power, a presence, an intelligence, call it God, Spirit, the infinite, or whatever feels comfortable for you. This power existed. It always existed. That this power and presence was all-knowing and simultaneously all-powerful and everywhere. What would be the one thing this presence wouldn't really know? It wouldn't know what it was like to be separate and apart from itself. It wouldn't know what it would be like to create in a way that was truly free to choose, including choices that appeared not to be in its own best interest. So in order to experience life and greater possibilities, this essence created the universe, the realm of time and space and matter. Simply stated, it appears that this universe, or possibly even multiverses beyond ours, were created for a place for this infinite intelligence to express itself, to fulfill its desire to create, to allow itself to forget its source, and to learn to remember from where it came. But this creation was not a free-for-all. Rather, the universe was created with certain laws or rules on how it was to operate. These laws included the laws that science is currently discovering, such as the laws of gravity and thermodynamics and so on, as well as certain mental or spiritual laws, such as the law of correspondence or the law of attraction, which have been discovered by mystics and others. Also, embedded within the universe is an evolutionary impulse. This impulse pushes matter and consciousness forward to greater and greater degrees of complexity. In our scientific story, the beginning's called the Big Bang, and our outer world was on an evolutionary journey which we're all familiar with. The material universe evolved, stars, elements, planets, and so on, and on certain planets like Earth, life emerged and became more complex. Plants, animals, humans. Yet in our spiritual story, this beginning is seen as one where the infinite intelligence of oneness exploded with aspects of itself, shards of light in some tellings, of itself being cast out into its creation. And these parts were allowed to forget their source, so they could experience being separate and apart from itself. The universe of multiplicity was created from within this ultimate unity. Yet at the base of everything, embedded in everything, are the characteristics of this divine unity. We frequently hear the term the ground of all being. And that term is used to describe the interconnected ground of oneness that's embedded in everything. What are those divine characteristics that are embedded in everything? There's many, but for what's most important for us to consider in this moment are the following. Consciousness, the creative impulse, the evolutionary impulse for reproducing and becoming more complex, and the power of love. Consider that for a moment. Everything everywhere contains at its base consciousness, whatever that is, the desire to create, some sense or desire to connect, love. We're literally living and moving in a universe that's teeming with consciousness, creativity, and love, among other characteristics. And just as the outer world of matter evolved to greater degrees of physical complexity, so did the inner realm, the realm of consciousness. And although it's difficult for us to imagine how other consciousness might be experienced in other so-called lower forms, such as minerals and plants or animals, we can at least consider that there are states of consciousness in all forms of matter. And we can consider that as these forms become more complex expressions of matter, that so too did their consciousness grow to greater levels of depth. Eventually, evolution on Earth brought us humans who crossed a unique threshold in consciousness, one where we became self-aware, a complexity where we knew that we know. And in that, humans began to sense and believe that we have free will and the ability to choose our actions and thoughts. We'll look at all that in a later video. So here we are in the story. And in a very real sense, we humans are stuck in two worlds simultaneously. On the one hand, we are the product of millions of years of physical evolution and our animalistic past. Our physical bodies, reptilian brains, hormones, cultural influences, and all aspects of our physical past call us to fulfill certain basic lower needs. Yet something in us pulls us forward to higher needs, to understand the meaning of life and our place in it, to become all we can be as humans, and ultimately to transcend our human past and move confidently towards a spiritual future. Yes, we've got one foot in the animal world and one foot in the spiritual world. And we live each day in that dynamic tension. As Teilhard de Chardin so aptly put it, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. But this all begs the question, where are we going? What is the ultimate end game here? Simply stated, we're created from oneness, but allowed to forget our source. But our evolutionary story is taking us back to the beginning, back to the oneness, only now with a greater realization of what that means, having had this experience of separation. We'll return home only now with a greater understanding of what home and oneness truly means. As T.S. Eliot so famously stated in his poem, we shall not cease from exploration, and at the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time. Finally, how do we know that we'll actually reach that sense of oneness? How do we know we will return home? Well, Spirit's got an ace up its sleeve, so to speak. One of the characteristics embedded in everything is the power of love. Love calls us away from our sense of separation and seeks to unify us with others. And as we unify with others, we're called to even greater levels of unity. So ultimately, love is not simply a human emotion. It's an evolutionary force that's calling us home to our unity. As Chardin also said, someday after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love, and then for the second time in the history of the world, man will have discovered fire. So there you have it. The spiritual evolutionary story told succinctly. There's much more to it, and we'll look at that in later videos. See you then.